I remember the exact second everything started falling apart. Not the moment I found out, that came later, but the moment she planted the lie. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was elbow-deep in motor oil. I run a small engine repair shop in Ashford, Illinois. Been my place since I was 28. Lawn mowers, tractors, old trucks. If it had an engine, I could bring it back to life. I was halfway through replacing a carburetor when my wife, Emily, walked in holding a tiny plastic stick. "Guess what?" she said, smiling like a kid with a secret. I wiped my hands on a rag and squinted at what she was holding. Then it hit me. Pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. My first instinct wasn't shock, it was disbelief. We tried before. Years ago. Doctor said it was unlikely. Unexplained infertility, they called it. We stopped pushing. Decided maybe that wasn't our road. So seeing those 2 lines felt like stumbling across a lottery ticket. Scratched, glowing, and somehow mine. I pulled her into a hug, oil-stained hands and all. "You're sure?" I asked, my heart pounding. She nodded against my chest. I took 2. I didn't cry. I don't really do that. But my throat closed up in a way I hadn't felt since my dad died. That night, I drove to a second-hand store and bought an old cedar cradle. It was chipped and dusty, but I saw potential. Spent hours sanding and restaining it in the garage. I even carved our initials into the bottom panel, just me being sentimental, I guess. Emily stood in the doorway while I worked, sipping tea, wrapped in one of those big cotton robes she always wore when she wanted to look cozy for Instagram. "You're going to be such a good dad," she said softly. I believed her. For the next few weeks, we lived in that bubble, the one where everything feels like a montage from a movie. She downloaded pregnancy apps. We picked out names in bed. We argued over boy versus girl, crib versus bassinet. But something kept nagging at me. She never mentioned doctor visits. Never brought home those ultrasound pictures every expectant mom seems to wave around like badges. Anytime I asked about checkups, she got weirdly quiet. "It's early," she'd say. "I just want to wait until we're past the risky part." I didn't push. I figured maybe she was scared. But then came the envelope. I found it by accident. A regular day. Mail had piled up on the counter. I was flipping through bills and flyers when I saw it. A white envelope from a women's clinic just north of town. Addressed to her maiden name, E. Rhodes. That alone felt strange. She hasn't used that name since we got married. Curiosity won. I opened it. Just 1 page. Simple. Cold. Procedure. Tubal ligation. Completed successfully. My stomach flipped. I read it again. Date of procedure, 5 months ago. I stared at the number until it burned into my brain. That was before the pregnancy announcement. Way before. My knees gave out a little. I sat down at the kitchen counter like the wind had been knocked out of me. Tubal ligation.
Permanent stérilisation.
5 months ago. Which meant the baby wasn't real. I didn't even get angry at first. Just numb. And then, like a slow-motion replay, I started remembering every moment she'd touched her belly, every time she'd leaned into me and whispered things like, "I think it's a girl," or, "Do you think she'll have your smile?" All of it scripted, none of it real. And still, I didn't confront her. Not that night, because I needed to know more. Because one fake test could be a mistake. But a procedure? That was something else. That was intent. Emily came home that night like everything was fine. She was wearing her favorite gray leggings and one of those oversized sweatshirts with a motivational quote across the chest. Progress, not perfection. Her hair was up in a messy bun. Her cheeks still flushed from a workout or a session with one of her clients. She's a personal trainer, part-time, at this boutique fitness studio called Rise Plus Well. "Hey babe," she said, tossing her gym bag by the door and walking over to kiss me. I let her. I even smiled, but inside, my stomach felt like a rusted bolt, seized up, unmoving. "How was your day?" she asked, opening the fridge. I watched her pull out a pre-cut fruit tray. She hated processed food, always said cutting your own pineapple was a sacred ritual. But here she was, grabbing cubes of watermelon with her fingers, chewing like a kid sneaking candy. "Quiet," I said. "Did some engine work? Replaced the blade on that old Gravely mower." She nodded, distracted, scrolling on her phone. She didn't notice that I was watching her too closely. Didn't notice the envelope was gone. Didn't know that I'd seen everything. We ate dinner like normal. I made a baked salmon, she used to love that. Talked about adding it to her YouTube meal prep series. She always said she wanted to build a brand. Emily evolved. Health, empowerment, maybe a line of teas eventually. She smiled while she talked, but her eyes didn't smile. I used to think that look meant stress. Now I wasn't so sure. After dinner, she curled up on the couch and turned on one of those shows where rich people redecorate barns into mindful living spaces. I sat beside her, silent, letting the noise fill the room while my thoughts ran laps in my head. I needed proof, real proof, not just a letter and a bad feeling. So I started keeping track. I opened the Notes app on my phone, created a new file, and labeled it Observations. Nothing dramatic, just details. Times she left the house, where she said she was going, how long she was gone, if she mentioned seeing someone, if anything felt off. First, it all seemed normal, but then the lies began to leak through the cracks. 3 nights later, she said she was going to a prenatal yoga class downtown. It's supposed to help circulation, she said, tapping her calf. These cramps are brutal. I nodded, watched her drive off. Then I waited 10 minutes and drove down there myself. No sign of her car at the studio. I parked around the corner and waited for half an hour. Still nothing. So I called the studio, pretending to be a new student, and asked if prenatal yoga was still on the schedule for tonight. The woman on the phone sounded confused. "We don't offer prenatal yoga anymore," she said. "Not since last summer." I thanked her and hung up. That was the moment I knew. Not guessed. Not suspected. Knew. Emily was lying to me about everything. The pregnancy, the appointments, the classes, it was all smoke. And I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was fascinated. What was the end game? Why go this far? I thought about confronting her that night, standing in the kitchen while she drank her nightly chamomile and just dropping the envelope on the counter. But I didn't, because deep down I needed to see how far she was willing to go, what she was willing to say, and more importantly, who else was part of this story. So I made a call. His name was Dave Mercer, a retired cop who now ran a small private investigation outfit in Ashford. We'd met through a mutual friend a couple years back when I was dealing with a shoplifting issue at my store. I didn't give him all the details, just told him I needed to know who my wife was spending time with, and whether she was being honest. He didn't ask why, just said, "Send me her schedule. I'll handle the rest." And just like that, I was watching my marriage from the outside, waiting for the pieces to fall into place. For the next 10 days, I played the part of the clueless husband. I kissed Emily good morning, made her smoothies, rubbed her lower back when she said it ached from the baby. She started putting a pillow between her legs at night, told me it helped her sleep better, asked if I could pick up prenatal vitamins on my next grocery run. She even started suggesting baby names again, new ones, different from the ones we'd already talked about. It was like she wanted to hit reset, start the lie from scratch. I nodded along, took notes. Every conversation, every comment, logged in my phone like I was studying for a final exam. Meanwhile, Dave Mercer worked in the background. Every few days, I'd get a text from him. A timestamp, a location, a plate number. Simple. Clean. No fluff. Then one night, he called me directly. "You got a minute?" he asked. "Always," I said. "I've got something. Thought you should hear it before I send the file." I stepped into the garage and shut the door. "She met with a guy this afternoon. Same one I've seen twice now. Tyler Hayes. Tall, maybe early 30s. Clean cut. Trainer at Rise Plus Well. Ring a bell." Clenched my jaw. "He works with her," I said slowly. "At the studio." "Thought so." I ran his plates. "His truck's been parked near your house more than once, even when she says she's out solo." Today they had lunch at Harper's table. Back corner booth. No touching, but their body language was close. Close how? Leaned in, smiling, her hand on his arm once or twice, like they were trying to be discreet but forgot how windows work. He paused. "You want me to dig deeper? Phone activity, maybe?" "Not yet," I said. "Just keep watching. I need to be sure." After we hung up, I sat there in the dark, staring at my workbench. Tyler Hayes. I could picture his face. We'd met once at a community barbecue the gym hosted last summer. He'd shaken my hand and said, "Your wife's a beast in class. Total machine." I'd laughed, thinking it was a compliment. Now I saw it differently. This wasn't some slip-up. It was a pattern. She'd been crafting this alternate life, one where I provided the roof, the security, the groceries, and he got the excitement. And the fake pregnancy? That was her shield. A wall to keep me from looking too closely. No man questions a woman who says she's carrying his child. We freeze. We soften. We obey. She knew that. I had to find out how much of her story was rehearsed, and who else had seen the script. So the next day I played dumb again. We had pancakes for breakfast. She asked if we could go look at cribs on Sunday. Something minimalist, she said, scrolling through Pinterest. Natural wood, no paint. It's better for air quality. I nodded like I was already picturing the nursery. But inside, I felt like I was walking through a museum of someone else's dreams. And then she slipped. I asked her gently if she'd scheduled her first ultrasound yet. Told her I wanted to come this time. She froze for just a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. The blink too long, the tiny swallow, the way her voice caught before she spoke. "I'm still waiting on a call back," she said quickly. "They're booking out really far right now." And now I had proof she was actively avoiding creating medical paper trails. She was scared of getting caught. That night, while she was in the shower, I checked the medicine cabinet. Her prenatal vitamins weren't touched. Seals still unbroken. It was all performance. And I had front row seats. 2 nights later, Emily told me she had a girls' night planned with Megan, her best friend since college. I knew Megan well enough. We'd done barbecues together, double dates. Her husband, Chris, and I weren't exactly close, but we'd shared a few beers in his garage and swapped lawnmower tips. "She's been going through stuff," Emily said as she adjusted her hair in the mirror. "Just needs to vent." I nodded. "What time are you meeting?" 7. "Probably just dinner and a glass of wine." She wore perfume. Not her usual daytime scent, the one she called clean and citrusy. No, this one was bolder. The kind she usually saved for special occasions or parties. She kissed me lightly on the cheek and said, "Don't wait up." As soon as she left, I called Chris. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, man." "Weird question," I started. "Is Megan hanging with Emily tonight?" He paused. "Megan? She's not even in town, dude. Flew to Phoenix to see her sister. Left yesterday." "Why?" I smiled, even though it wasn't funny. "No reason," I said. "Just curious." After we hung up, I didn't go out. Didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I already knew where she was. Probably with Tyler. Probably laughing. Maybe rehearsing whatever speech she had planned in case I ever asked too many questions. I sat on the porch, sipping a beer in the dark, watching the stars, and thought about how calm I felt. Not angry. Not devastated. Just focused. Like a mechanic diagnosing a long-hidden issue. I wasn't guessing anymore, I was collecting data. And soon, I'd have the full map of her deception. When Emily got home around 11:30, I was sitting on the couch pretending to be half asleep. She walked in quietly, took off her shoes, then came over and kissed the top of my head. "Long night," she whispered. "Megan really needed it." I mumbled, "Glad you were there for her." She smiled, thinking I meant it. The next morning, I went out to her car while she was upstairs drying her hair. In the back seat, I found a takeout bag from a steakhouse. Emily hadn't eaten red meat in almost 2 years. Said it messed with her stomach. Inside the bag were 2 used napkins, 2 plastic forks, and a receipt. Dinner for 2. Filet, salad, sparkling water, and, oddly, ginger ale. She hadn't ordered wine. She wanted to keep her story clean. That same afternoon, Dave sent me another update. Tuesday afternoon, her and Tyler checked into Riverview Suites under a name not hers. Stayed 2 hours. Left separately. He attached photos, nothing salacious, just stills. Tyler getting out of his truck. Emily stepping into the hotel lobby with a scarf wrapped around her face like someone in disguise. They were trying to be careful, but not careful enough. Dave's report also included a note about a second visit. Same week, same hotel, same routine. She used a credit card I didn't recognize. I guessed it was his. She didn't even bother using cash. That night, Emily made chicken stir-fry and told me a story about a client who fainted during a deadlift. I swear, People don't eat before class and expect to be superheroes. She laughed, tossing rice into her bowl. I nodded. She leaned forward and touched my hand. You okay? You've been kind of distant lately. I looked up and smiled. Just tired. Lot on my mind with the shop. She squeezed my fingers. Well, we're in this together, okay? Don't shut me out. Took everything I had not to laugh, because she had already shut me out, long before I noticed. But she didn't know that I was awake now, and I wasn't playing along anymore. I was preparing, and when it came time to make my move, it wouldn't be loud or messy. It would be surgical. By week 3, I had more than enough to confront Emily, but I didn't, because it wasn't enough for her to just admit it. I wanted her to see what I saw, piece by piece, and realize she'd underestimated me completely. So I waited, and then the universe handed me everything I needed on a silver tray. Her iPad. She rarely used it, mostly for recipes, the occasional Zoom call with her nutrition group, or journaling. She kept it in the laundry room near the shelves where she folded towels. One night while she was out grabbing tea with Megan, I noticed the iPad plugged in on the counter. I don't even remember deciding to pick it up. It was instinct. My hands moved before my mind caught up. No password. I opened it, scrolled past the homepage. She hadn't closed her notes app. At the top of the list, a file caught my eye. If he asks. I tapped it. The screen loaded a wall of text. Not long, just enough to feel rehearsed. Jason, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to say. I didn't want to tell you like this. I thought I was pregnant. I wanted it so badly. But I lost it. Very early. I didn't even have the words. I blamed myself. I still do. Please don't be angry. Please just hold me. I'm broken. I read it twice, then 3 times, and each time, it became more obvious. This wasn't a raw outpouring of grief. It was a monologue, a script, a fallback plan for when I inevitably started to ask the wrong questions. She had prepared this fake heartbreak in advance. Not to confess, but to control. If I had found the truth by accident, without Dave, without the letters, without the hotel photos, she would have handed me this sad, trembling version of the story and watched me collapse into sympathy. She would have made me comfort her, made me feel guilt over a baby that never existed. That was the part that cracked something in me. Not the cheating, not the lies, but the fact that she was willing to let me mourn something she invented, and then use my compassion to seal the lie even deeper. She had the whole play mapped out. Only one problem. I stopped being the audience. I started directing my own scene. The next morning, I watched her cook eggs like nothing had changed. She hummed while the skillet sizzled, barefoot, still wearing the sweatshirt that said Mama Vibes in big curly letters across the front. I stared at those words for a long time. They used to make me smile. Now they felt like a joke she forgot she was telling. Later that day, I called my lawyer. Quiet guy. Smart. Known him since high school. I told him I needed to prepare for a divorce. Quickly, quietly. I didn't tell him the full story. Just said there was deception, potential infidelity, and that I needed the house reviewed for title clarity. He didn't flinch. Just said, let's move fast. Then I went to the bank. I didn't empty our accounts. That would raise red flags. Instead, I transferred half into a new account under the name of a holding company I'd set up years ago for tax purposes. She'd forgotten it existed. I left the rest where it was. Enough to keep her comfortable, not enough to make a scene. Next stop, title office. When we bought the house, I'd added her name to the deed. Thought it was the right thing to do. But our contract had a clause. In the event of proven fraud, the original title holder could request reversal. I filed a formal request. Then I went home. She was in the living room, editing a yoga tutorial on her laptop. Thinking of calling this one Strong Starts, she said without looking up. For first trimester energy. I nodded. Sounds good, I said. But all I could think was how she was building a platform out of fiction. Selling advice for a pregnancy she fabricated. Posting workouts for a body that had never carried life. And planning a future with a man who didn't know she was married. But that was fine. Because very soon, all of it was going to come crashing down. And when it did, I wouldn't have to say a word. The truth would speak for itself. The funny thing about lies is how heavy they get, especially when you carry too many at once. Emily had spent months juggling her stories, who she was with, where she'd been, what she was expecting, what she'd lost. All of it twisted around one carefully constructed image. The glowing wife-to-be, finding herself, building a brand, planning a future. But I'd stopped seeing the glow. All I saw was shadows. That weekend, Dave Mercer sent me a file labeled RH Session 4. Inside, 6 still photos. Tyler Hayes and Emily mid-lunch, mid-laughter, at a quiet outdoor cafe on the other side of town. One of them showed her reaching across the table to touch his wrist. Another caught them walking to his truck afterward, not holding hands but close enough to read their body language. She wore the same hoodie she'd worn to dinner with me the night before. Same tight braid, same lip gloss, just a different man. I studied the photos until the edges blurred. Then I pulled up Tyler's profile from the gym website. The bio read, "Tyler believes in transforming from the inside out. Mindset is everything." I almost laughed. I wondered how much of the story he knew. Had she told him I was emotionally distant, controlling, gone? Had she told him she was pregnant? Or had she claimed it was his? My stomach turned at that thought. Not from jealousy, not even betrayal, but from the realization that she had been scripting every version of herself, wife, trainer, victim, mother, for every audience. None of it real, not even her grief. That night, I went into the attic and found the glider chair I'd built when she first announced the pregnancy. The one I sanded and painted by hand. The one with our initials carved beneath the seat. I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrapped it in an old quilt and loaded it into the back of my truck. I didn't tell Emily where I was going. I just drove. 30 minutes away, there was a church that ran a family support center. They took in donations for young moms and foster kids. The woman at the front desk was probably in her 60s. Soft voice, tired eyes, kind smile. She ran her hand along the arm of the chair. "This is beautiful," she said. "Did you make it?" I nodded once. "Well," she said, "someone's going to rock a baby to sleep in this. You just gave a family a real gift." I thanked her and left without saying much else. On the way home, I realized something strange. I didn't feel sad. I felt done. Like I'd just let go of something I didn't need to carry anymore. When I walked through the front door, Emily was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by sticky notes and camera gear. "Trying to film something inspirational," she said. "But the lighting's off." I nodded. She looked up at me. "You okay?" she asked. "You've been distant again." I walked over, knelt down, and kissed her cheek. "I'm just thinking," I said. "A lot on my mind lately." She nodded like she understood, but she didn't, not even close, because while she was building the illusion, the content, the captions, the curated life, I was building something else. An exit, one with no shouting, no throwing things, no begging, just a quiet, undeniable truth, and a door she'd never see closing behind her until it already had. The next day, I filed the divorce paperwork through my lawyer. Everything was prepared, assets separated, titles cleared, bank accounts split and sealed. She would get her share. Nothing more. No surprises, no battles. Just cold facts on white paper. Her future, reduced to a folder. I didn't feel powerful. I felt precise. And that was enough. I told her I had a surprise planned. "A weekend away," I said, casual as ever. "Just you and me. No phones, no cameras. Just a little time to ourselves." Emily lit up like a porch light. "Oh my God," she beamed. "Like a baby moon?" I smiled and nodded. "Exactly." She didn't question anything. Didn't wonder why I suddenly seemed so affectionate again. I brought her flowers the night before. Cooked dinner. Charged her camera batteries for her content. Played the perfect husband. She thought I was softening. She thought I'd forgotten whatever distance I'd been showing. What she didn't realize was that I'd simply chosen the moment. We drove out Saturday afternoon, 40 minutes into the countryside, to a quiet inn just past the state line. Nothing flashy. Just rustic charm and a little cabin-style dining room with candles and river views. She wore a new dress. Maroon, off-shoulder, tighter than her usual. Her hair curled, perfume deliberate. She wasn't dressing for me. She was dressing for her image of me. "Hope you're hungry," I said, holding the door open for her. "Starving," she replied. "And you've been so sweet lately. It's like, I don't know, like you're finally back. I gave her a slow smile. I never left. We ordered dinner. She talked about content strategy, about launching Emily Evolved as a full wellness brand. I'm thinking about opening a studio, she said between sips of sparkling water. Like mind, body, soul, not just weights and mirrors. Sounds big, I said. She reached across the table and touched my hand. With the baby and everything we've been through, I feel like it's time. You know?
I stirrte her fingers.
Still wearing the wedding ring I gave her. The one she swore was the only thing that ever felt permanent. I pulled out an envelope from my coat and slid it across the table. Her eyes lit up too fast. She thought it was a love letter. Or maybe a surprise ultrasound. Something sentimental. She opened it slowly, her smile blooming, then freezing. The letter inside was from the Women's Health Clinic. The one that had performed her tubal ligation. The one dated 5 months before she ever told me she was pregnant. Her fingers tightened around the paper. She didn't speak, didn't blink, just sat there, holding the truth in her hands like it might dissolve. Tell me, I said quietly, were you going to fake a miscarriage? She looked up, eyes wide, then immediately filling. Jason, I shook my head. I found your note, I said. The one you wrote on your iPad. The one labeled, if he asks. You had a plan, Emily. You were ready to break my heart in a way that made me feel guilty. Her lip trembled. I didn't raise my voice, didn't flinch. I just leaned forward, calm. How long were you going to keep it up? Until you convinced me to sell the shop? Retire early? Move closer to your new life? Her voice cracked. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I cut in. You used a child, a fake one, to buy time, to manipulate me, and you smiled while doing it. She opened her mouth again, but I slid a second envelope across the table. Thicker. Divorce papers. Pre-signed. Reviewed. Notarized. Assets fairly split. Titles reclaimed. Accounts closed. She looked down at them like they were a weapon. What do you want from me? She whispered. Nothing, I said. That's the difference between us. You lied for control. I told the truth to let go. She swallowed hard. The dress she'd picked so carefully looked like a costume now. Is this really it? It was over the moment you handed me a fake test and cried like you meant it. I stood, calm as the night air, paid the bill, left the envelope on the table, walked out.
No shouting.
No scene, just truth, and the quiet that followed it. Because that's all she had left now. Silence. I didn't go back home after that night. I prepared everything. The next morning, while Emily was still reeling from the restaurant, I slipped into the house for the last time. I had waited until she left for the gym. She was still pretending everything could be salvaged. Still clinging to her script. I watched her car pull out of the driveway from around the corner, then pulled up with the moving van. The crew was fast, efficient, no questions asked. Dave had set it all up. My essentials, clothes, tools, documents, guitar, photo albums, boxed and loaded in less than 2 hours. Everything else? I left. The house wasn't mine anymore. It was just a shell where the lie had lived. But before I walked out, I left a folder on the kitchen table. Contained 4 things. The clinic letter, dated and stamped. Printed surveillance photos, her and Tyler at Riverview Suites. A hard copy of the If He Asks draft from her iPad. The signed divorce papers. And one final thing, a handwritten note. It wasn't angry. It wasn't poetic. It was honest. You didn't just lie to me, Emily. You lied about something sacred. You faked a child, manipulated my hope, and rehearsed my grief. This isn't about revenge. This is about release. I don't hate you. I just don't recognize you. And I refuse to be the man in your story anymore. I signed it and walked out, dropped the key through the mail slot, and didn't look back. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, leased under a different name. New utilities. Clean slate. That night my phone buzzed, over and over. Her number. Then texts. Where are you? We need to talk. Jason, please. I can explain everything. I didn't respond. By midnight, she shifted tones. You can't just disappear. This isn't fair. We were happy. You're not even giving me a chance. I turned the phone off and slept. 8 full hours.
No nightmares. No wandering.
No aching silence next to me. just peace. The next few days I kept my head down, finished some overdue engine work at the shop, got coffee alone, sat by the lake and didn't think about her voice, or her plans, or her yoga empire built on fiction. People noticed I was gone. Mutual friends started texting me, checking in. Word was getting out. Emily had started spinning her version of the story, but I didn't engage. When people asked what happened, I gave them exactly 12 words. She lied about being pregnant. She was sterilized. I found out. It's over. That was it.
No accusations. No ranting.
Just the facts. And facts are heavy things. They spread without help. She lost her job at the studio 2 weeks later. A quiet restructure, they called it. But I knew better. She tried launching her wellness channel anyway. 2 videos, 1 crying apology, then radio silence. The comments weren't kind. Tyler? Gone. Took a job out of state. Blocked her on everything, according to Megan, who finally texted me and said, I had no idea.
I'm sorry.
If I'd known what she was doing, I told her it wasn't her fault, because it wasn't. Emily was the author of this mess. She'd written every line. I just finally turned the page. The house reverted to me after the fraud clause in the deed was triggered. My lawyer handled it. She didn't even contest it. I think by then, she understood she'd lost something deeper than a property. She'd lost the mask, the performance, and the audience. Now, she was alone in a story no one wanted to hear. And me? I had no more lies to carry. No more rooms full of her echoes. Just open air and the sound of my own breath. Steady, strong, real. Emily thought she could pivot. That's the word she used. Pivot. After I left, she tried spinning her downfall into a rebranding arc. Comeback story. From pain to power. From loss to light.